Hola, and welcome to Vive Nutrition Radio, the first ever Spanglish podcast where you will hear interviews with the top minds in nutrition, performance, fitness, and health in both English and Spanish. Here is your host, expert registered dietitian, Andres Ayesta, on a mission to help you take your nutrition to the next level. Hope you're ready for this. Let's dive right in.
Welcome back to another episode of Vive Nutrition Radio. This is Andres, your host, and I am wanted to send you a short apology. We missed last week's episode because of the fact that we have been expanding and growing our Vive Nutrition team. So things that have been busy here at our Tampa headquarters, aka my house. But as we have grown a very awesome virtual team, so we're super excited about that. But I wanted to make it up to you, so I decided to bring in, or I reached out to a very awesome dude. I literally sent him a message on Instagram, sometimes even not expecting him to respond, but I was lucky enough that he did. And he came to share his story in our podcast. And I think you're going to find it very inspiring. You may see him and you might know him with a different name, or like his Instagram name or his Insta famous name as John Glaude. John is, I think, originally, or at least lives in San Diego, but John is very famous for his weight loss journey, but not necessarily as much as the time that he went to the Ellen DeGeneres show. But let me talk to you guys a little bit about him. So John David Glaude is his full name. He once weighed around closer to 360. He actually thinks he's closer to 400 pounds and wore 5 extra large shirts. But gradually, obviously, he got to a point when he was like younger, he decided to make a change. Anywhere between he was like 17 and 20 years old, he was frightened that he was going to die. And he decided to make a pivotal change in his lifestyle to change and to lose all that weight, to bring him down all the way to 190 pounds. In today's episode, we went to dive deeper into that journey, what that was like, some of his challenges, some of his ups and downs, and some of like important lessons and he learned along the way of this entire process. He's now an avid CrossFitter. He actually went on to the Ellen DeGeneres show in 2014 because CrossFit HQ did a video on him where he showed a lot of his insecurities after that weight loss journey. We're going to be talking a lot about that today towards the end of this episode, so make sure you listen fully. And one of those biggest insecurities were his loose skin. So a lot of times there's, as one of my mentors once told me, with the new level, there's a new devil. And I think that's one of them that was for him. So not only he talked about his weight loss journey and how he went from, again, being obese to being 190 pounds, but at the same time also some of the challenges that came a result of that. Now John is a massive YouTuber, Instagrammer. He has a podcast called Work for Change, and I will provide all the links in the show notes, but make sure you listen to the full episode as this was very, very inspiring. Hopefully you will enjoy it as much as I did recording it. Here we have John Glaude. See you guys next week. All right, welcome back, guys, to Vive Nutrition Radio. My name is Andres, your host, and I do have the pleasure of having, as I mentioned it on the intro, John. And I'm hoping that I say this right. Is it Glaude?
Yeah, you said perfect. Yep.
Sweet, awesome, man. Well, I wanted to welcome you to Vive Nutrition Radio, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm happy to be on here and talk about whatever it is we get into.
Yeah, man. I remember when I reached out to you on Instagram, I was like, oh, man, I really wish I could bring this guy into a podcast. Let's see if he responds. And you just like right in there. And I was like, dude, this is so exciting. So
yeah, for me, I get so many DMs. So like sometimes I won't, like, I don't see it. And then sometimes it'll just like happen perfectly. I'll be kind of in the DMs and I'll get it and I'll like respond right away. So luckily, you were one of the people that I responded to. There's just so many of them.
I got it right there. So if you guys don't know John, so I mentioned it a little bit on the bio, but he's been a huge voice on like the whole weight loss world, and his story it's like way out there. So literally, dude, we're gonna start off with that. So why don't you tell like the audience a little bit more about you from the beginning, because I think you have a pretty intense story to tell, and there's been like a lot of ups and downs throughout that, and I think a lot of people listening to this are going to resonate with your message. So why don't we start from like maybe back to the beginning?
Yeah. So beginning. I mean, we'll start way back. So when I was really young, I was kind of overweight as a kid. But so when I was really young, my mom was addicted to drugs, and we ended up getting taken away from her because of that. And then we were put back with her after about a year. So the reason that I say that is, growing up, we didn't have much money. We didn't have, like, my mom wasn't able to give us much. And I don't blame my mom for anything, nothing like that. But, like, she wasn't able to give us much. But the thing that she could give us, and me especially, was food. So, like, if I ever was like, I wanted seconds, or I wanted to maybe get something from fast food, most of the time with anything else, she had to say no, because we just didn't have the money for it. You know what I mean? I want to play this sport. I want to do this. No, you can't do it. Like, I can't afford it. Right. But with food, it was like, well, yeah, of course you can have seconds. Like, that's something I can do for you, you know? So I started, like, really starting to notice that I was gaining weight when I was like 5 or 6. So basically very, very young, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And all throughout, you know, elementary school, I was kind of husky. That's what we would say. Something that my family would always say is like, oh, because I was pretty short. I'm 5'8", so I'm not super tall. But, like, they would always say, oh, you'll grow out of it. Like, you'll get taller and then you'll lean out. And I believed that. I was like, yeah, that's probably what'll happen, because the rest of my family wasn't super overweight. But then, you know, going through middle school, just gaining weight. So I was like one of those people that just gained weight my whole life. So was just kind of eating anything and everything I wanted. And then, you know, in middle school, like, I was gaining weight. I was always slightly active. Like, I played, it's actually kind of funny. I played flag football when I was a young kid, because one, we couldn't afford tackle, which is called Pop Warner.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't afford that. And I was actually over the weight limit. So there's like a weight limit for little kids, and I was over that. But so I played flag football, and on the flag football team, I've always had I feel like a pretty good work ethic. Like, if there's something, I get very focused on things. So if I'm focused on something, I go for it 100%. So in flag football, I was the center, and then I would be like a defensive lineman. And I got MVP like 2 out of the couple years that I played. And, like, MVP normally is like quarterback, running back, something. But it was like, I just loved it so much, you know. So I was always kind of active-ish, you know, but obviously not enough to keep any weight off, because I was gaining weight through middle school. And then in high school, like, in middle school, I was a pretty big kid, but then in high school, it was like I was the biggest kid at the school, you know?
Yeah.
And so just kind of gaining weight throughout high school. I was lucky that when I was heaviest, when I was in high school, I was very good at, like, making fun of myself. So I was the person that I didn't get picked on very much because of my weight, but because I picked on myself so much.
Yeah.
You know,
you kind of like bullied yourself in a way, and since other people wouldn't necessarily do it, or like wouldn't bother you about it.
Mm-hmm. So, and that was like a double-edged sword for me, because it was nice, because no one likes to get bullied, right? So it really did make that not happen. But at the same time, all these negative things I was saying about myself, I just start to believe them, you know? So I didn't have much self-worth in high school. I had, my nickname in high school was Cupcake. And, like, at first, when the kids that gave me that nickname, they were trying to be mean to me. But I flipped it into something that really became like this alternate personality that I had in high school. Any class that I was Cupcake in, that everyone knew me as Cupcake, I was very outgoing, loud, funny, obnoxious, probably very annoying to the teachers.
Yeah.
But then if it was a class that people just knew me as John, I was very reserved and quiet, didn't talk much. So it really was a big part of who I was. Like, when I graduated, they said, like, they announced my name as John David Cupcake Glaude. Like, it was like everyone knew me as that. I actually have a cupcake tattoo on my calf. It's like a memorial kind of. It says piece, because I no longer identify as that anymore.
And it represented a big kind of like time in your life for you.
It was it was a really big time. Like, but yeah. So throughout high school, I again just gaining weight. I actually, like, as I was talking about, I loved football growing up, and so I went to try out for the football team. And this is like I think really solidified the fact that I need to be the one that's making fun of myself, because I went and tried out for football, and we did this thing where they do a lap. So it's a 400-meter lap, obviously, right? But they have the linemen and stuff start at the front, and then they have like the running backs and like the cornerbacks and the quarterbacks and stuff, people that are faster behind you, to kind of try and push you to run, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't run the whole lap, not even close. And so everyone's like passing me on the lap. That was kind of embarrassing, but it was what it was. Like it is what it is. But then we did outside drills and I felt like I did okay with that. Like I tried really hard, but then we went into the weight room and now I had never lifted a weight in my entire life. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And they put me under a squat bar, 135 on the bar. I had never squatted. The bar is just sitting on my neck. And I'm just like,
what to do now?
I was just in pain. And so I was like, I can't do it. Right. And I was like working out with the other linemen and like the lineman, like, I guess you could call him captain. He was like, man, you're the biggest person here and you can't even squat that. Like, what are you even good for? And I just remember like that. I ended up leaving practice. I made up a lie that I had to go take care of my mom or something like that. And I left practice and I never played football in high school. And so like that was a big thing for me because that was like freshman year. And I was like, I can't let that happen again. And so I just kind of embraced the funny fat guy kind of thing, But then, throughout high school, gaining weight. And then once I got into college, basically out of high school, I went to college for a year, but I became even more sedentary. So I started gaining weight even faster. So in high school, I was probably like, 320 pounds. But then like after about a year after high school, I was up to close to 400. Like I always say my highest weight was 360, but I don't think that's actually accurate. Like I think it was higher.
You just weighted yourself then? Yeah.
No, yeah. I didn't weigh myself until after I had lost a good amount of weight. And I just kind of said, I've probably lost 30 pounds because 330 was the first weight that I saw. But I mean, that was after I had been dieting for quite some time. But regardless. And then so out of high school, I was a lot more sedentary and I just kind of started gaining weight even more. And so I started losing weight when I was 20 years old. So I graduated high school when I was 17. So that 3 years, I just remember like for about the last 2 of those years, I was always afraid of dying. And like, that sounds kind of crazy, but I had to be home alone because I was like, well, if I have a heart attack or if something really happens to me, no one's here to help. And I just remember like it was always on my mind. Like it was always going through my mind. And so this all kind of came to a head when I went to a wedding. I was invited to a wedding. It was up in Utah. So I live in San Diego. So it's about a 13-hour drive. Mm-hmm. And I had to find clothes for the wedding, which was a nightmare because I wore a size 5XL shirt at that point. I was wearing a 56-inch waist. So like finding clothes took forever. I finally found stuff that I was like pretty happy with. I was like, cool, I'm going to look nice at this wedding. So we go and drive up there. I'm with a couple of my friends. And the whole time, I'm drinking soda, eating candy, not drinking any water. We finally make it to Utah. And it's about 13 hours. And I remember I went to get out of the car and I like fell back down into the car almost. And people saw it and they're like, are you okay? And I was freaked out because I was like, something is going on. Like my body is shutting down, And so I was like, oh, no, I'm fine. I just need to take some Advil. Like I haven't been drinking any water. I'm sure it's just the elevation or whatever, made up a bunch of excuses. But like that really scared me. The whole trip, I was super scared that something was going to happen. Luckily, it wasn't anything really serious. Like I think it was just like a lack of water and elevation and all that stuff. But it freaked me out. And so the wedding happened. A couple days later, we drive back down. And then a few weeks later, we get the pictures from the wedding. And I was like super happy with how I looked. And then I saw the photos and I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I was like
an eye-opening moment whenever you saw those pictures.
Yeah, well, because it's hard. Like once I started gaining a lot of weight, I noticed that I would never look in a mirror ever. Like the only time I would look in the mirror was after I showered and the mirror was foggy and I would like clean off the mirror just a little bit to see my face to make sure nothing crazy was going on there. But that's it. Like I don't even remember what it looked like with my shirt off at my heaviest because I wouldn't even look down when I showered. Like I just kind of kept my head up and like, so it was like, it's crazy when I think about it. Like I really don't remember what I looked like.
But is this like something that happened right after high school when you kind of started getting this like idea that you felt like, you were going to die, that something was going to happen to you, or even throughout high school, you like, cause like, I guess like the question is like, did you ever feel comfortable throughout high school, even the weight that you were at, or like, obviously that you, that was just kind of like self-sabotaging, like, yourself was just more of like a defensive mechanism, but you're still obviously didn't really feel comfortable in your own body. Was it something like that?
Yeah. I wasn't like the guy that like embraced being the big dude. Like I kind of did because I felt like I had to, but in my head, like in like when I thought about it, I always felt like there was a person in there that was trying to get out. And like I remember, this is super random, but I would have dreams when I was in high school because I skateboarded as well. I would have dreams about me being thin skating because I skated almost my whole life and I was terrible the whole time. Like I could never really do much because of my weight. Like it really did affect everything, you know? And like I was afraid to fall because of how much weight that I had, so I wouldn't really try stuff. And so like I always felt like I shouldn't be this size, you know? Like obviously the decisions I was making were to make me that size, but like I felt like I know that there's someone inside of me that's trying to get out. Yeah. And so it was always a point of contention. Like I always wanted to lose weight. I just never really tried that hard. And the times that I did try, I was doing things that, I mean, one of my favorite words is sustainability. And I would do things that were not sustainable at all. Like just very crash diet kind of things. And at the time I didn't know that was not a good idea. I just thought that I was like, oh, you have to put your head down and work really, really hard and basically hate your life for a while you're losing weight. I disagree with that completely now. But so I was always kind of like, I wanted to lose weight, but I just didn't. I on like jokes and stuff like that when I was in high school. Oh, I just don't have a metabolism, or I would always like find. I would always look at other people and see what they would eat and be like, well, they eat the same thing I do. Why aren't they my size? But in reality, like with friends, we would go to McDonald's and I would get doubles, 2 McChickens, a large fry and a large drink. And they might get a McDouble and a drink. But in my head, I'm like, we're both eating McDonald's.
Yeah, we're eating the same thing. So why?
Exactly.
And you would blame it on external factors.
4 times as much. Exactly. I'm eating 4 times as much as they are, you know? And so like, I always felt like I just wasn't happy with my size, but I also felt like I can't change it.
And when was that pivoting point for you? I guess like when is it like the moment that you said, you know what, like something's got to change? Because I think I read in your story that happened twice. From what I understand, like it was a point where you kind of started doing it, but then kind of failed or didn't really kind of do it the proper way or something like this. Mm-hmm. And then the second time where like things happen, like you're like, no, something needs to really change at this moment. Mm-hmm. Like what was that like? What was that kind of like that pivoting moment for you that made you like completely change your life?
Yeah, so it was a little bit after the wedding. So I saw that stuff that wasn't like enough to make me do anything about it. But then I tell that story because I think it's important. It got my mindset in a certain spot. Because then I was actually watching Miami Ink, which is like it's a reality TV show that used to come on back in the day. They had it on Netflix for a long time. I'm not sure if it's still there, but I had been watching it, and I had 2 tattoos at the time. So I have the ones that are on my forearms. And I would always think like, I can't get tattoos anywhere else. Like it would look silly and yada, 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 whatever. But I would watch the show and I would always like wish I could get more. And this guy came on that had like lost a lot of weight. And they were just kind of like talking to him, oh, how'd you do it? Blah, 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 blah. You know, he was getting a tattoo to commemorate his weight loss. And honestly, I don't exactly remember what he said, but I just remember thinking, he said something along the lines of it was choices. You know, choices he made before put him where he was, so he needed to make different ones. And I just remember thinking like, I can't blame anyone else anymore. And I wouldn't really blame people, but I know in the back of my head, I would like, oh, it's my mom's fault for feeding me this, or it's this fault, or it's my metabolism, or it's blah, blah, whatever, right? I was like, screw that. That isn't helping me at all. So I need to take control. And like, there were things that I knew I was doing that were unhealthy. Like whenever I would try and lose weight, I would cut out soda because I drank over a 2-liter soda a day, every day. It was just very normal for me. So it was like, I knew there were some things that I was doing that were unhealthy. I didn't know much, but I knew the basics, right? So it was like, okay. So that night, it was funny because I was actually eating a double entree plate of orange chicken and fried rice from Panda Express with a large soda. But I was like, I'm going to finish this food and tomorrow I'm going to wake up and like, I'm going to do this. And I remember I woke up the next day and it felt like I was born again, as cheesy as that sounds. Like I was like, I'm ready to do this. Like this is time. Like it's time. The time is now. And I woke up, I went and got a haircut because I was like, I'm changing, I bought some water and then I got sandwich stuff because I was like, I don't know how to eat healthy, but I know that sandwiches are healthier than what I was eating before.
Yeah.
And like, that was the start. And I just kind of from there, I tried to learn more and more. Because like I said, like I can focus on one thing very hard. And so it just became, I'm going to focus on trying to lose weight. And so from there, like I wasn't doing the best things ever. Like I was still eating a lot of sandwiches and like all this stuff, but better than you were before. And that's what helped me. And for me, it was actually quite the blessing that I couldn't at the time afford a gym membership, because for so many years before, when I would try and lose weight, I would think I need to go to the gym and crush it and kill these workouts and do a bunch of stuff. And that's how I'm going to lose weight, because I would watch like infomercials back in the day and like they're doing all these crazy workouts and it's like, oh, Jen lost 50 pounds doing total body blast at home or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of the ad for like 10 seconds, they were like, and she followed the diet plan. You know what I mean? So like, I just thought you have to work out really hard in the gym to lose weight. Like that's the most important thing. But because I couldn't afford a gym membership, I was like, well, let me focus on nutrition. And it showed me nutrition by far the most important thing when you're trying to lose weight. By far. Like something that I like to say now is weight loss happens in the kitchen, fitness happens in the gym. Like they complement each other very well, but you shouldn't be mainly focused on the gym if you're trying to lose weight. I think you should be mainly focused on your nutrition, because that's going to give you way more results in a much quicker fashion, and it's not going to feel like you're killing yourself.
Yeah,
you know?
and I think a lot of people just like go to the gym to be able to eat, when in reality it should be like, it's like and it happens a lot. And I know you do a little bit of CrossFit too, and it happens a lot. I feel like, because I work with a lot of CrossFitters, and it's like, like they think like this high intensity type of training, it's kind of like giving them the ticket to say, you know what, I kind of deserve this. Like, this is my reward for like all this like high intensity work that I just did. Mm-hmm. When in reality, a lot of times it's like a 10-minute workout that you did or 20-minute workout that you did. And it's not really even reflected. I tell people like sometimes you burn more calories like by just walking and getting steps daily than the work that you put in the gym. So, but a lot of times like people just like think, I made it to the gym, I walked through the door, I did this, so that automatically deserves more food, and I can just kind of like get away with it, right? So that's something that kind of happens a lot of times with our clients, and it's just kind of like understanding what's like the right mindset that needs to come with that. So, and I guess like for you, I guess a very important question is like, what were some of like as far as, because you started this journey like all not having no clue what to do from the nutrition perspective. So what were maybe some of like the resources that you felt like you kind of went to when you started to realize that nutrition had a very important, like a very big impact in your journey? And like, kind of, what were some of the things that you felt like really helped you back then with limited resources or limited information?
So for me, something that I do when I get very into something is I'll just go on YouTube and I'll search about it. I did, like when I learned how to play drums, I watched drummers on YouTube. And so when I was like, okay, I need to lose weight, I just was like, my natural instinct was to just go on YouTube. And like, it really, that was so helpful, because there are so many people out there that have such good information. And I don't know, I got lucky that I didn't get sucked into all the fad diet things. I got into nutrition, and I just naturally started watching people that were kind of talking about macros. And I was like, macros, what are these things? Like I didn't know what they were, right? And so my first kind of nutrition thing that I was even looking into was macronutrients. And I still believe that that's a way to look at things, like understanding fats and proteins and understanding calories. And like, I learned what calories were through that. And so like, honestly, I just kind of was watching YouTubers, like people that kind of talked about nutrition, and I found out what TDEE was, and I found out what NEAT is, and I found out what, like all these, your BMR and all this stuff that I was like, when you say it like that and you don't know what it is, it sounds like it's so crazy. But like when you actually look into it, it's so basic. Like, I'm not a very smart person, but I can understand this stuff. So I think if I can understand it, anyone, if you take, like, honestly, like I really believe that I can sit someone down talk to them for maybe an hour about all this stuff, and they would have a very good understanding of that stuff. And it's like, it's such that I wish more people knew about it, and it's not their fault. I just wish that it was something that was taught, because it really is. Once you hear it and learn it, it's like, oh, okay, it totally makes sense, at least to me. But yeah, that's kind of what I did. I just watched YouTube videos and just kind of learned more and more as I was going through. But I mean, at the start, it was very much so trial and error, and like, what's healthy? And then I just would eat really low calories, and it got to a point that wasn't the best. But then once I started watching the YouTubers and like learning about nutrition, once I was like, I want to start working out and I want to start going into the gym. Because like with me, when I started, like, it's one of those things that I started with a good heart, like with the whole weight loss, but it ended up becoming kind of, I got overly like ridiculous and overly restrictive, because again, I didn't have that knowledge yet. Like I hadn't been watching stuff. So I was just like, in my mind, I was like, lower calories means better. And that became kind of dangerous as well for me.
The typical like eat less and do more type of mentality. And I guess like for like, what was like, was like a weight a big driving factor in like your day to day? And the reason I asked, we currently have one of my guys, like, you know, and he's listening to his podcast. He's going to be like, yep, he's probably thinking of me. His name is Carlos. He's kind of like, he started like 430 pounds. He's currently right now sitting around 383. But a lot of times it's those weight fluctuations that really mess him up. Right. So it's like kind of seeing the scale go up like 5 to 10 pounds, and a lot of times like dropping 5 to 10 pounds. What was that like for you? Like, what were some of like the biggest challenges throughout the journey? Like you feel like a lot of people struggle with on a daily basis, specifically people that are starting at a very heavy weight. Mm-hmm. And how did you kind of like overcome some of those different things? Like, you know, were you very like weight driven, or was it more of like how it kind of looked up of like, you know, motivation for yourself?
I became weight driven, much so like I just kind of looked in the mirror and tried to see if I was changing, because like in my head I was like, well, I'm making all of these changes, so obviously something must be happening, you know. And so, but then it became like I became very weight driven. Like I was like, I want to, like, you think about like The Biggest Loser, right? People are losing 15 pounds in a week, and I'm like, that's what I need to do. And I have my own thoughts on that show, but like it became like how much weight can I lose in a short amount of time? And that's like, I tell people all the time, like, it doesn't matter how fast you lose the weight. That's not what people care about. Like, and that's not what you should care about. Like, what people care about, and like what to me is what's more impressive is that you lost 200 pounds, right? But you've kept that weight off for 10 years. Like, I don't care. Like, oh, you lost 400 pounds in a year and a half, but then you gained it back because you didn't learn right tools. You know what I mean? So like I became very weight focused for a while, but it wasn't even that, honestly. Like I became very calorie focused. Like I was, how can I cut calories in this? How can I cut calories in this? Like, how can I lower this? What can I like? And then I got to the point where I wasn't using any sort of seasonings or sauces. Like, oh, there's sodium in that. That'll make me like, because like you were saying, like, I still fluctuate a lot in a day. And I think that's because of my loose skin. It holds water weight a lot more than like it would if I didn't have it. But I'll fluctuate 10 pounds in a day, easy. And so understanding that for me now is nice because I don't freak out. But like before, I didn't know that. So in my head, anytime I gained weight, that was a bad thing. But in reality, maybe I just had a meal that had a lot of sodium, and then I drank a good amount of water, and I was holding on to it, and I just needed to go to the bathroom or something like that, you know? But yeah, it would definitely, like, I would get kind of like scared when I would see the scale go up. And so I just became like no sodium, as low calorie as possible. And that like ended up being not a good thing, and it got kind of dangerous. Sure.
Dude. And I think you just mentioned it's funny that you mentioned, because I know you just did a YouTube video on this, and I literally last week I was in a workshop talking about the Biggest Loser competition. Mm-hmm. And I referenced to a study that they did. I'm not sure you're familiar with it, like looking at, I don't remember exactly the season, but I think it went from like 2008 through 2015, and they follow up with all of them. Like, I think it was closer to 20 participants, and you know how like they basically talked about like all like the strategies that they did to be able to get them to lose like 190, 180, 200 pounds within like 3 months. Yet when they followed up with them like in 2015, like 7 or 8 years later, all of them, except for maybe like 1 or 2 people, not only gain all the way back, but they also put on another extra 20 pounds. And basically they were referencing to like metabolic adaptation and how it's impossible to sustain that type of living that they had in the Biggest Loser kind of like camp, I guess is what they call it. Eating 1,000 calories, 800 calories, and then working out for 4 hours a day. That's not a way to live. So I guess I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on it, because like maybe you kind of were at a point where kind of like where those people are kind of starting off. Like, what are your maybe like your thoughts as far as like this entire like, you know, show that people sometimes like listening and may actually feel like, oh, if they can do it in this show, I can do it myself too.
I have a lot of thoughts. I honestly, like, it's weird because The Biggest Loser, when I was heavier, I was like inspired by it. I thought that I was. But then it got to a point where I felt so lost in that I had no chance of losing weight that I hated the show. Like, I didn't like my mom would watch it, and I hated when it was on. I would go into my room, you know. And now I am very critical. I don't want to say that I hate it, but I think that I understand why people might like it. It's inspirational. You're seeing people change their life, or at least that's what you think. But now that I know what I know, I feel like I'm watching people go down a terrible path. And I don't understand. I was so excited when they said that they were going to bring it back. I was nervous, but I was like, they said they were going to bring it back, and they're like, we're going to completely revamp the show. We're going to change it all up, because all those studies were coming out of the people that were all gaining their weight back, and they're all talking about how they didn't learn much on the show, or that like it was just too crazy. And this new season, like, I'm struggling to find any difference really. And so I think that the show, it gives people, like, one of my biggest things that I have a problem with it is it gives people these false expectations. Like, they feel like they need to, one, be doing these insane workouts when they're like morbidly obese, or have morbid obesity, right? Like, they feel like they need to be doing that, which I just don't think is true. I think that it's actually very dangerous. So like I said earlier, I lost most of my weight without going into, like, I think that it's good to work out, and you should, but like, it's not a necessary thing to be there and like punishing your body hours and hours and hours. And also, it's not healthy to be losing 15 pounds in a week. Like, unless you are really, really, really large, like 600 pounds, 15 pounds might actually happen for the first week, right? Like water weight and all that stuff. But like, for the vast majority of people, 15 to 20 pounds in a week is too much. It's not sustainable. And so that the show, while I can see why people are inspired by it, I think that the long-term effect, like, I hope that the one thing they've said that they're doing this year is all the people that are get sent home, they're like they have like a nutritionist for a year, and they have like a whole team that's going to be with them, helping them out. So that's good, I guess, you know, but yeah. My thing is the people that are watching the show that think, like, there's like the last video I made, this girl was mad that she lost 4 pounds in a week. She was mad. So I'm thinking about the person that's at home that lost 2 pounds and was stoked, and now is like, wait, should I not do it right? Yeah, exactly. And so my biggest thing is, like, it gives people false expectations. Like, even the people on the show that lose all the weight really fast, they think, oh, this is my life now. They get home and they're around, you know, Papa John's and all this food that they weren't around before. Their families are around because they're isolated on this camp. So now they're around their family, which, oh, we're so happy you're back. Let's go get some food together. Oh, it's Bob's birthday. Here's some cake. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was like, why do they even do the whole isolation thing? Like, it's just so silly to me. Like, they're not even able to call their family. And that just seems like such an old, like, they used to do that back in the day with reality shows. And I'm just like, it just seems so, it just doesn't seem necessary anymore. Because I feel like it's just making it even more unrelatable, because they're going to come home and they're going to have all these people to talk to. So
it's like it's like you went to prison and then you got out. Yeah. Like, you're like institutionalized. Like,
yeah. It's so strange to me. But yeah, so I think that for me, it's the main issue I have is the false expectations that it gives to people.
Which is good to know, because again, so I guess like now flipping that and like talking more about realistic expectations, you that have been down this path and been down this journey, what are, like, for, let's say, like, people listening that are either going through this journey or considering starting this journey because they're at a point where they say it's enough, you know, what are those realistic expectations? Like, what would you tell, like, for somebody doing that? what would like really realistic expectations look like? You know, what would be something that they can kind of like hang on to basically understand that this is a process that takes time, and that what they see in a reality show is not necessarily real life.
Yeah. I would say the first thing is to make sure that you're focused on yourself. Like, it doesn't matter how fast Jill and Steve are losing weight. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's about you, you know, and understand that, like, it doesn't matter how fast you lose the weight. And that's hard to say, because I remember, like, I just wanted to lose the weight as fast as possible because I felt like I was grinding so hard to just want this weight. But the thing that matters is how long are you keeping that weight off? And if you feel like, I really do believe that if you feel like you are struggling so hard to get this weight off, most likely you're not going to be keeping that weight off. You know, like, losing weight is hard. I'm not saying it's going to feel easy, but if you're like, I just need to get to my goal weight and then I'll be good, that's not a good mindset to have. Like, it really is. And like, these are such cheesy platitudes that people say, but like, it's so true, because I say it all the time too.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not a sprint. I wouldn't even say that. Like, a lot of people say it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, which I kind of agree with, but it's not even that. It's just a journey that to last the rest of your life. And that might sound daunting, and it would be if you feel like you're struggling every day and like it's so hard all the time. But once you kind of take that away from yourself and be like, no, this is just my life now, and I just learning healthier habits, need to learn what things I need to avoid, what things work for me. And like, once you get to that mindset, which takes a long time, and I'm not saying you're going to feel like this if you're, you know, trying to lose 300 pounds, you're just going to all of a sudden, like, it's going to be hard at the start, but slowly being able to realize, like, there's no end to this, just a life that I live now. I think that that's important to try and get. Again, like I said, that's easier said than done. 100%. Yeah. I've been there, but that's where I feel like I am now. And it's again, it's not a race. It's not who gets there first. So.
Yeah. And I think like what I tell a lot of like my clients too is like, you know, you want to make sure that you're changing, you're making sustainable. And you mentioned, you talk about the word sustainability, sustainable changes to a point where it just becomes a natural thing for you to do. Like, it's like you're waking up and brushing your teeth. Like, you know, it needs to get to a point where like you go into the gym, you look forward to it. Now you don't necessarily dread it, because it's like an obligation in order for you to lose the weight. And I think that's a lot of times like the switch that, or like a lot of like times like people need to kind of like change in their mindset, because it's really like we talk a lot about mindset, and I feel like people cannot lose weight if they don't have a stronger mindset. Like, if you develop that, obviously like the process becomes easier. And I think obviously that's something that you develop obviously throughout the years. And I as you were talking about this, I also wanted to ask you, because I think I read it in one of your, I don't know if it was a blog or a post, that it was about you, which was like obviously the phrase like relationship with food. So obviously, like, fast forward, like, you, like, throughout this journey, you lost all this weight. How was that impacted? You know, and when I talk about, for people listening, in relationship with food, we just kind of refer to it as like the way that you view food after, either before, during, or after a weight loss journey. And how do you, like, a lot of times people fear food, fear certain things, don't eat carbs because they're going to make me gain weight, all these different things. And they create like, and they start to see food as like this like prohibited items versus like the ones that I can have. How was that impacted in your journey? Like, and how has that changed also throughout this entire process?
Yeah. Relationship with food. That was something that was tough for a long time. My relationship with food for most of my life has been very flawed, right? Like, when I was growing up, food was everything. Like, it was my comfort. When I was sad, happy, mad, I went to food, right? It was like, basically it was like a reward. It was everything, right? So that's how I gained all my weight. So then food became evil. Like, that's how I treated it as. That was very unhealthy. It's not a good thing, you know? I was afraid of food. As that sounds so weird, but I didn't like eating. I felt there was a point, I get fired up about this, but like, there was a point when I was losing weight where I felt bad if I felt so, like, I went from eating everything to then, and this was a slow process, but eventually I got to a point where I did everything in my power to eat as little as possible in a day. And so once that started happening, I actually ended up developing a pretty bad binge eating disorder. Now, when this happened, I didn't know that's what it was. I didn't know anything about it. I just felt like I was doing really well, that's in quotes, for a few days, and then I would just fall off. But in reality, I would eat, between 700 and 1,000 calories a day for about 4 days. And it was like clockwork. And then the 5th day, I would eat 6, 7, 8,000 calories of just whatever I wanted. And the thing that was scary for me about binge eating was that I did feel like I was out of control when it was happening, but at the same time, I could feel it coming on. So it felt like I feel it behind me, and it was just creeping on each and every day. Like it's going to come. I can't handle this anymore. Like I'm not eating enough. That's not what I thought, but that's what was going on in my head. I'm like, I really want that. I really want to eat this. I really want to eat this. And then eventually it would just catch up to me, and then I would binge really bad. So that lasted for a while. And the reason, I would say, the way that I was able to get out of that, and binge eating, everyone's very different. So, this is not me saying this is going to work for you. For me, what ended up happening was I actually started lifting a lot more and just like wanting to actually add muscle. And I didn't know that much at the time. This is when I started actually learning about macros and all that stuff. But at the start, I was like, well, I want to start lifting. I was actually kind of thinking about maybe joining the military. So I was like, I need to be able to do some push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that, right? And I was like, I can do like nothing. I was very, very weak. I was very, as they call it, skinny fat, I guess you could call it.
This is after you lost all the weight, right?
Yeah, this was after I lost all the weight. And so I lost a big chunk of my weight without working out. And so it was just restriction. And it's not me saying I recommend that, but I'm just being honest, And so the way that I was able to get out of that, and it still took a long time. It took about maybe close to a year. It's hard to remember, maybe 7 months or something like that, where I was still struggling with it. But because I knew that I wanted to start adding muscle and I wanted to start working out, like I could not work out on the amount of calories I eating. It just wasn't going to happen. So for me, kind of upping my calories daily made me feel a lot less hungry. Process that took quite a while. And then, so I ended up like getting over the binge eating. And then I started working out, and I kind of started really getting into bodybuilding style training. And that was like the first kind of working out that I did. I feel like that's a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. And so I ended up acting this is like, and then after this is kind of when I started my YouTube channel, and I was like trying to help other people. My Instagram and stuff like that is when I was trying to start help people. It's when Obese to Beast kind of came to be. And I was like, oh, I want to help people lose weight and all this stuff. And then, so through the channel, I was like, oh, I'll do a men's physique show. Cause I was like, oh, I'll go from one extreme to the other. Right. And so I did the men's physique show, and obviously I had to eat a lot lower calorie at that point to lose the weight. I was doing a lot of, like, because I was trying to get very lean, and luckily I was really scared. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was prepping for the show that I was going to end up binging, like, especially after the show was done. I was able to be pretty on point with my diet as I was prepping for it, because like for those shows, right, you have to do a lot of cardio. Yeah. You have to be training every day. You have to make sure you're in a deficit. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. I was making, that's like when the one good thing about the show was it made me understand macros very, very well, because I had to be so meticulous with everything that I. And
now, did you do this on your own, or like you kind of were like assisted in kind of like the process to prepare for a show?
I didn't have like a coach per se, but I had a friend of mine that also makes YouTube videos that he'd done a couple shows. So we kind of did it together. Good. And so I would just like, most of it did it on my own, because I would just watch videos of people that had done shows and they kind of talked about how they did it. And so, but I would run stuff by. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking I'm going to drop this amount of calories this week. And he'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds good. So I ended up doing the show, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was very tough. But I was super nervous, because I was like, so many people do these physique shows and they get really lean, and then they blow up in weight very fast, like 30 pounds in a few weeks, like no joke. Right. And I was like, I can't let that happen to me, because like that was scary. Right. And so luckily nothing crazy happened, and I was able to really slowly, like I slowly gained weight. Like I weigh like 210 now. around there. And I was like 180 pounds when I did the show. So I've gained like 30 pounds. And obviously a lot of that's water. Some of it's fat. Obviously, I think I put on some muscle because that's like 4 years ago now. But I was really, really nervous about like blowing back up in weight. But then it was kind of like after the show, I was like, I just didn't like training as much as I did before. I was like, I don't have that fire. I could feel that I didn't have that fire anymore. And so my brother actually ended up starting to do CrossFit because it was actually his now wife, but one of the girls at the show was competing and he met her there and he thought she was cute. And so he ended up like messaging her and she did CrossFit. And so she invited him and he started doing it. How much did it? And then so I was like, I kind of maybe want to try this out. And then I started doing CrossFit. And so for me, CrossFit was actually been a really helpful thing because it's taken my focus off of like aesthetics, and it's not just about like how you look. It's about like, can you do a box jump? Can you do a muscle up? Can you do this? Can you do that? Like I'm so much more I'm so much more focused on what my body can do other than what it looks like. And so CrossFit for me has been a huge help in repairing my relationship with food because now I eat to fuel my workouts. Like I don't like reward myself because we kind of talk about, like I don't reward myself for a workout because I understand calories and I understand that, even if we're doing a long CrossFit workout, it's probably 20 minutes and you're not burning that many calories, but I still want to make sure that I'm properly fueled for my workouts and stuff. So that's been a really big help. And now I just kind of, because of the base of knowledge that I've racked up over years, like I'm able to, like, I don't have to track everything that I eat. And for me, that's a big win. Yeah. I think tracking is good. And I think everyone should learn how to do it. I think that's it's a tool that anyone can use.
Yeah.
I don't think that people should feel like they need to track for the rest of their life. But for me, I tracked for a good amount of years, and now that knowledge has helped me to where I'm able to just eat and make the right decision,
Yeah, dude, that's
so
crazy. That's crazy that you mentioned that because it's exactly what we tell, because we use like macro-based coaching for a lot of our clients, but we usually tell them like, hey, listen, this is not something we're going to do for the rest of your life. This is more of like a tool to help you create awareness and to teach you. So eventually you're going to be able to kind of win off of that. And then you're going to be able to actually kind of like, sitting down and look at a plate and see like, hey, this is actually kind of getting a good amount of proteins, carbs, all those different things. And it kind of creates a good balance around that. But the more you repeat it, the better it goes. So exactly. I think that's a huge thing for that. Now, what does like your diet look like nowadays? Like, are you specifically working towards something at this point, or you're just kind of like, trying to remain healthy, or is there anything that you're currently and actively pursuing right now?
My diet right now, I mean, I would just say that it's relatively, I don't even know, like healthy, I guess. Like I kind of just eat what I want, but the things that I want are considered healthy, I guess. You know what I mean? I'm not I'm not waking up in the morning being like, I want a cinnamon roll. You know what I mean? Like the things that I want are like relatively healthy. I eat a lot of eggs and a lot of, like oats, and I love bread. Some people don't like bread. I love bread, and like stir fries and a lot of vegetables and stuff like that, but like for me, I don't really have anything now. I have some things that I'm like thinking about. Like I think I might want to do a triathlon at some point this year. I did a marathon last year, so I'm kind of like, I don't want to do another only, so I want to kind of like bump it up and see what I can do. So I think like my next goal would probably be my body for that. So I'd probably end up eating a fair amount more carbs, like if I'm going to be doing other and stuff. But right now it's definitely a thought. It's not I haven't been like, I'm going to do it on this day. But yeah, that's kind of how I eat now. I mean, honestly, it's like, I'm at a point now where I think very little about what I'm eating. Yeah. Just because like one, my diet, something that helps me a lot now is my diet is very similar day to day. And it's like a lot of people are like, oh, that must be boring. For me, I don't know. I don't get bored. You like it that way, yeah. Yeah, it makes it very easy. I know how I'm going to feel after I eat this breakfast. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like I need to change anything. So yeah, that's kind of how I am right now.
Cool, dude. So, and we're just kind of coming to the very end of it, but I wanted to ask you a very important question, which is, if you could talk to your maybe 20-year-old self today, like literally have it right in front of you, and you can give him like 3 bullet points, like 3 things that you wish you could tell that like early, like, you know, that younger John from back then that you wish you would have known then, what would those like maybe 3 to 4 things would be for like, you know, and think about maybe like at the very beginning of that journey that you wish you could have done differently?
Mm-hmm. It's hard because like there are things that I'm not super proud of, but like everything that been through, I am, you know what I mean? Like dealing with binge eating taught me to understand it more so I can help people that are dealing with it. But I would say like one of the main things is like, you don't need to eat only 500 calories. Like it's going to be okay. Like you're not like, you don't need to race anyone. It's not a race, you know? And the next thing would be start CrossFit earlier because then I'd be better at it right now. And then stretch more because I have the worst mobility of all time. So
that's good, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that. I know obviously that when we didn't really chat too much about like I know that you made it to like at the Ellen show and based on like a video that you did not too long ago. So maybe we can just like chat a brief minutes about that. But I guess like one of the things one of my mentors actually told me is like with a new level comes a new devil. And I think, you know, in a way that maybe that's kind of what happened to you in a sense, because you got to a point where you lost all this weight, but then obviously that came with its own set of issues and kind of like concerns. So can you maybe elaborate a little bit more for people that never actually, I'm going to link it up to like, you know, on the show notes, like you make sure that you watch his YouTube and obviously your channel, but what was like kind of like that like issue that came along as a result of that weight loss?
Yeah. So with massive weight loss comes loose skin. It just is what it is. And if someone is trying to, this is just my own personal thing, but if someone is trying to say that you can lose weight and not get loose skin, they're lying to you and they're going to try and sell you something. I can almost guarantee it, but that's besides the point. If you're going to lose a lot of weight, you know, 100 pounds plus, maybe even a little bit less, everyone's a little bit different. You're going to deal with loose skin. It just is what it is. I didn't know that. And then so when I was losing weight, I was like, what is going on? Why do I look deflated? But it is what it is. So I made a video that went really viral. It's the video that changed my life. So I ended up going on Ellen where basically I just took my shirt off and my pants off and like showed my loose skin and just showed what it looked like. And for a long time, I was very self-conscious about it. And I was very like ashamed basically. Now I'm just like, it is what it is. Like, I mean, I will say that I am lucky that it's not super noticeable. Like I can wear a tank top and it's not like you see it and it's not like, whoa, you know, there are some people that aren't as lucky as I am with that. So I've kind of decided not to get any surgery for it. People think that it's some easy decision, that surgery is no big deal, but I beg to differ. It's quite an intense surgery. And for me, at least right now, I feel like the cons outweigh the pros. And so I'm just kind of, you know, I'm fine with it. But like for me, it's loose skin is what it is. It's
part of
like
you.
It's part of me. It's like a battle scar of where I was. Like it tells a story. Issues from it. It's just kind of annoying. So I make sure that I wear a compression shirt when I do CrossFit. But like throughout the day, like I'm not wearing one right now. I don't wear one all day, every day. You know, it's just when I'm doing high intensity workouts or I'm going on a run that I'll make sure I wear a compression shirt. And it's a small price to pay for. I mean, honestly, it's like a small price to pay for the abuse that I put my body through for so many years. It is what it is. You know, if people see it and they're kind of disgusted by it, hopefully that helps them not get as big as I was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the way that I think of it. Like, I understand it's not normal. It's not like considered ideal, but it is what it is. Like, it's what I have.
Yeah. And it's kind of like part of your story, man. So I think obviously you got to embrace that. Cool, man. So I like to finish out the podcast, first of all, with some rapid fire questions. And then obviously you can tell a lot of people what you've been up to and how can people find you and reach out to you. So rapid fire questions are super easy. So it's the first thing that comes out to your mind whenever I ask it. Okay. First question would be favorite exercise or movement. Go.
Power snatch.
Oh, nice. I like that one. Favorite book that you would recommend somebody to even like listen as an audiobook or that you would like to gift somebody, like if you had a chance?
Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Ooh, yeah. I saw that guy live. He's a pretty good dude.
Yeah.
Number 3, what's a podcast that you would recommend people to listen to and just totally can plug in Obese?
My podcast, Work for Change.
Nice. Work for Change. Yeah, make sure that you got to leave this. You do it with, is it your brother or
Yeah.
like, okay, got it. Because I know that there's another Glaude in there. So I just want to make sure it was right. Cool. And the last one would be, this is a fun one. If you were stranded on a desert island for the rest of your life and you could choose only one food to have, it can be a compounded food. It doesn't have to be just a one ingredient one. What would you choose?
I'd probably choose stir fry.
Okay.
Because I feel like you can get a lot of micronutrients. Because like if I chose pizza, you're going to be dead in a year. So like I think I would choose stir fry.
You went from the analytical point, like you went from the analytical standpoint, like not by like the. If I'm going
to be stuck there the rest of my life, like stir fry, you could kind of change it up, like add different things to it. I don't know. I feel like pizza, I'd just be on the desert island, just like out of my mind. Like,
yeah, you can maybe do it for a week, but not for the rest of your life. Oh, cool, man. Well, appreciate that. So how can people find you, John? Like, how can people reach out to you? Like, what are you up to? I know you're like in a million different places. I want to make sure that we link it up into the show notes. So, but what's the best way to see what you're up to right now?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, I'm on Instagram. Everything is Obese to Beast. So Instagram, YouTube, Obese to Beast. And then obviously, if you're listening to a podcast, you like podcasts. So my podcast is called Work for Change. I do it with my brother. We talk a lot about, like, it's a fitness podcast, but it's not like, we're not those people that are like, we just have fun conversations. So we'll interview people. Like, we're very into the CrossFit space. So we've had like Matt Frazier on it. We've had Tia on it. We've had like a lot of CrossFit athletes on it. But then we also have like the most recent one, we talked to this girl that's lost a lot of weight that now owns a CrossFit gym. So there's a lot. And then there's episodes of me and him just talking about nothing and arguing because we're brothers. So
cool,
it's a lot of fun. So it's called Work for Change if you want to check it out.
Work for Change podcast. So I'm going to be sure to link it up in the show notes, and definitely reach out to John like via Instagram. Maybe you'll be able to catch him whenever he's on it. Yeah. He replied to your DMs like I did. So John, it's been a pleasure to have you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time here today to come on a podcast and shed some value and drop some bombs on here.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
I appreciate it, brother. Hey, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Vive Nutrition Radio. I wanted to ask you a quick favor. If you enjoyed this episode or if you're enjoying the podcast altogether, make sure you subscribe and leave us a review so we increase our visibility and we continue to reach more people and change your lifestyle through nutrition, performance, fitness, and health. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys on the next one.